Greetings Guardians, my name is Bife here. Apologies that the Zavala and Sophia video is taking a while. I know I promised it on Twitter and I still have plans to go ahead and do it. It's just there's an awful lot to go through and it's already looking like it's going to be a really packed script, so I'm doing my best to tide you all over with some topics in the meantime that aren't exactly mainly from the season but are still very relevant to all of the Lightfall stuff and things going around this season. Anyway, today I wanted to talk about something that's always bothered me with the Vex. When you have a storyline in Destiny involving them, it's very uncommon for you to find yourself a mechanical construct amongst them that summons even a shred of personality. Such is the curse of the Vex, that their personality is so very inhuman by design that it truly isn't possible for them to evoke much human emotion other than mystery and wonder. It's hard for us to think of them as more than robots because, well, they are beyond alien to us and they are impossible to understand. They are simply an enigma to us. But it's even more troubling trying to write a storyline centered around the Vex because you need to create villains for a story, and you can't really do that easily with the Vex. The closest we've come to real Vex villains would be the inclusion of individual minds, such as the Templar and Atheon from the Vault of Glass, or Panoptes from the Curse of Osiris, or the Taken Quoria, the Blade Transform from the Season of the Splicer and the Books of Sorrow, which granted is also a Taken boss, but it still kind of serves the same point. And the thing about these Vex bosses is that they all have their own agendas, but it's ultimately serving what for the Vex is a mechanical process. There isn't really malice in the Vex in the same way that there is in an enemy such as, say, the Hive, or the Cabal, or the Scorn. So today I wanted to discuss where the future lies for the Vex, and a few interesting places that their story could take them. In particular, I wanted to focus on their motive and the potential for future villains and heroes within this faction. So I think the first thing we need to do is look to within the Vex and see where the next real threat is coming from. The most obvious place, and the one that we'll probably be looking into when it comes to the future story of Destiny, is that of the Witness. Now, it's clear that the Vex of the Black Garden have been worshipping the Witness this whole time. Long ago, they made a sort of pact with the heart of the Black Garden, binding themselves to it because they perceived that it was far more powerful than they were. In this moment, they made a calculation that it would be better to join the darkness than to stand against it or flee. And so, by learning the act of worship, these Vex have become direct and willing servants of the Witness and have bound themselves to it. It's a deliberate decision, a sort of symbiosis that the Witness is willing to allow for the simple fact that it allows itself to accomplish its own goals. And they have been used undoubtedly to advance the Witness's plans in any way that they feasibly can. But the thing is that the Vex aren't just one whole unit, and this is where things get really complicated. You see, the Sol Divisive of the Black Garden are just one set of Vex subminds. Different places and different subminds all hold different ideas on how to attain the ultimate goal of the Vex, which is that of survival until the end of the universe where they are the only thing left. Whilst the Sol Divisive made a calculation that the Witness had to be served to further their own survival, other subminds have made different calculations. One such group is that which resided on Io and watched over the Pyramidion. It's these Vex that interest us not because of who they are or who they serve, but instead because of who they're working with. Near the end of the Season of Arrivals, the warlock Asher Mir entered the Pyramidion with the aim of not allowing the information contained within to fall to the Witness. This goal was one that required his sacrifice, and eventually, as he made his way to the heart of the Pyramidion, the Vex began to see this. At first, they were attacking him, and then they allowed him to openly stride right into the heart of the complex. Eventually, Asher Mir would find the Radiolarian lake that he'd so commonly witted on about, and would bring it down upon himself, immersing himself in its Radiolarian fluid, and becoming one with the Vex. Quick crash course, by the way, for those of you who don't remember, contact with that white Vex milk Radiolaria will turn you into a Vex eventually, and Asher had just done the equivalent of cannonballing into an Olympic-sized swimming pool's worth of it. Asher would become one with the Vex after this moment. This is something we can confirm thanks to the end of the season of the Splicer, which sees us battling against the Vex and the Taken in the portal that was opened up in the Botza district. But also, it allows us to see a blue-eyed harpy off to the side of the battlefield. This harpy beeps at us in Morse code, and the word it beeps at us is assistant. For those of you that weren't around during Destiny 2's earlier years, before the sun setting, Asher never bothered to learn our name and simply referred to us as assistant from then onwards. So we have a pretty reasonable expectation that this is Asher Mir communicating with us. But you see, Asher in this respect is not unique. He is not the only one that has interacted with the Vex and become one with their network. He is not the only personality preserved in there. There are plenty of others who've become immersed with the Vex, and who now reside within their network in one way or another. To name just a few who have become one with the Vex or have interacted with them, we have Kabir, the Legionless, who fell victim to the Vex of the Vault of Glass when he drank of the Radiolaria of the Oracles, which tasted like the sea and allowed him to become one with them, slowly losing himself and his light. We have the captain of the Exodus Black, who fell victim to the Vex on Nessus and was preserved in another similar blue-eyed harpy that attempted to replicate him in some manner. We have any number of personnel on Europa that might have been stupid enough to come into contact with the Vex. Trust me, it's not impossible. Clovis Bray seems to have been infected by the Vex in some way or another. We have the 227 copies of the 4 Ishtar Collective team members. We have Praedith, the Warlock member of the original Vault of Glass fire team, who is stuck and trapped within the Vault of Glass, and even though we saw that his bones had been bequeathed to us and he had eventually died, maybe there's another way that we can contact him, given that the Vault frays time itself. And of course, there are many others that may have fallen into the clutches of the Vex that we just don't know about. The point I'm making here is that if we are getting to that point where we're trying to find a way of getting the Vex back into the story, and we're not capable of marshalling substantial villains out of the Vex, there's absolutely the possibility of finding some heroes within the network instead that might help bend it to our will. Or perhaps failing that, some corrupted personalities that might allow us to see a face of horror to the real manifestations of the Vex. This is one possible direction for the storyline of the Vex that hasn't been explored quite so vigorously, but there's been a lot of setup to it over the last 8 or 9 years. Also, it has a lot of potential given that the storytelling involved with Kabir, Praedith, Asher, the captain of the Exodus Black, and the many copies of the Ishtar team, they're all spread out across the system, and could provide us with a variety of different locations to visit across a season related to the Vex. I think, however, there is also the potential for a sort of evolution of the Vex on a larger scale, bigger than anything we've ever seen before. You see, with the culmination of the battle between the light and the dark approaching, the pathways for the Vex to survive might be starting to narrow up. As they begin to narrow down the different ways in which they might be able to survive, the Vex might actually begin to all converge upon the same shared idea of what survival might take. If enough Vex strands and timelines within the Vault of Glass close down, they might see that only one remains viable. If enough Vex calculations are made by the Vex that at one point would have resided on Mercury, then they might come to the similar conclusion. This, of course, is perhaps excluding the Vex on Mercury and Io that have been taken by the Witness by this point, probably. Maybe taken with a capital T, or perhaps simply taken in the same way that Mars was taken. Either way, the Vex as a whole are starting to see these possibilities collapse, perhaps. And if that is the case, maybe they too will start to coalesce around this one shared idea of survival that they all converge upon. Now, this is all theoretical, but entertain me for a minute. If they're looking to this logically, it might be indicative of the idea that the Vex would need to pool their resources and become more united as a fighting force, as opposed to being disparate and full of subminds. If this happens, several things may occur. Firstly, the major Vex offensives that might be conducted against any foe will be stronger and more coordinated, but almost certainly will be more pointed. There may be fewer of them, but the ones that do occur will be important and of particular interest. It's also worth noting logically that if the Vex do pool their resources together, they might still also see other resources such as their subminds ceding control to a single overriding directive, and therefore it's possible that we might see the emergence of a greater overmind in the Vex consciousness. If this is the case, this Vex created at the darkest hour might be an amazing villain or an amazing character generally, given that it might be given more precedence and power over the other Vex than any other mind before it. A Vex construct of a type like this would potentially be more powerful than any we've seen before, including constructs such as Panoptes, Argos, Atheon, and Quaria before it was taken. None of these minds might hold a candle to the power of a fully united Vex network behind the control of a single mind. If that's the future and the Vex do assimilate together, then this might be a truly magnificent fight for us to take on our hands, and partly because of the fact that if the Vex are truly looking to kind of future-proof this consciousness, they might be able to spread its instances out over the entirety of the network. If it's able to distribute its consciousness and to survive as an idea as opposed to simply a single mind, then maybe this villain is one that we could see persisting even after a simple Vex frame has been destroyed, and that is a potent possibility. It's not clear if that's exactly how the Vex work, but if it is, maybe we see an incredible villain here. And if this is the case, keep in mind that with all the combined intelligence of the Vex, Bungie might be able to in this moment give this particular villain a voice. And I think that might be something really spectacular as far as story beats are concerned, because we might see finally the heart and mind of this alien consciousness that we've been fighting for the last 7 or 8 years. It might not even be adequate to try and describe it if it does interact with you, because this is the thing, as far as the Vex are concerned, they are the most alien thing in Destiny, and I mean that in the strictest sense of the word. Yes, everything around us that we fight for the most part is an alien, but lots of them have shared concepts with us. The Eliksni share concepts of community and family and the light and duty. The Hive share concepts of glory and battle, and even religion and praise, even if their ideas of morality and good and evil are different. And the Cabal share the same ideas of militarism, and even some of the same ideas of revelry that we do, which is a strange one to examine, but it's all accurate. All of this, however, collapses when you try to compare the Vex to humanity, because they are so very different. So, if this mind does arise, it would be something that we truly couldn't describe because the Vex in themselves are beyond alien to us. It's a little bit like trying to describe the Reapers from Mass Effect in terms of their intellect. Yes, you can describe them as something like, say, a series of giant machine ships, but you really can't describe the truest sense of a Reaper for the same reason you can't describe the truest sense of what a Vex is. It is beyond you. It is massive. You are a minnow, and it isn't a massive leviathan in the sea, it is the ocean. It is that big, it is impossible to comprehend in a single sentence without missing detail that doesn't sell you the rest of the story. So that's where I think the future of the Vex might go, and whilst it's something that we need to sit around and wait for, I really do hope that Bungie develops something on this, because the Vex have all of this potential to be an amazing faction, but they're let down by the fact that you can't so easily incorporate heroes or villains into them. So we're well overdue for some Vex stories, and I really do hope that at some point Bungie takes the Vex and moves with them in that kind of direction, where we do get more characters out of them, and we do get to see them developing as a faction. That's all from me for now though. I hope you enjoyed these observations on the Vex as an enemy. If you did, go ahead and leave a like down below, and of course, if you want more video content just like this, go ahead and hit subscribe and the bell next to subscribe. Also, let me know down below in the comments section, how do you think Bungie is going to develop the Vex in the future? It's a very open-ended question. I personally would love to see more leaders and villains, but maybe you foresee a different way in which they as a faction could play into something. Whether that's as the tools of the Witness, or whether it's as some kind of part of a greater design, I don't know what it is, but let me know what you think. Either way, know that your viewership has been quite enough for me, and that in the meantime, my name is Byf. Rodacia ad Astra. I'll see you, Starside.